Buddha. The tale of the human path.
If one man conquer in battle 1,000 times 1,000 men, and if another conquer himself, he is the greatest of conquerors.
In times when horizons were filled with misty tales and mysterious visions, Siddhartha Gautama was born the future Buddha Sakyamuni. This extraordinary event was intertwined with prophecies and supernatural signs, carrying the promise of a remarkable destiny. The birth of the boy in the town of Lumbini, beautifully situated in what is now Nepal, where the mountains stood like statues guarding the land as if they were keepers of secrets, was surrounded by an aura of uniqueness. This happened around 563 years before our era. During the journey of the queen, who was to become the mother of this extraordinary child, the moonlight seemed brighter, and the stars twinkled like smiling faces. When Siddhartha came into the world, the air held its breath, and nature itself seemed to bow in reverence to this extraordinary event. King Suddhodana, Siddhartha's father, sought to discover the truth hidden in this mystical birth. He sent for the sage Asita to shed light on the future of the young prince. When the sage gazed upon the infant, his eyes shone like stars in the night sky, and his reaction was like a symphony of emotions. First immense joy, followed immediately by tears that flowed like streams of pure water. Asita knew that within this small being lay enormous potential. He prophesied that Siddhartha, although he would be a leading soul, would not escape suffering and difficulties. His life would be as colorful and multifaceted as the sight of blooming lotuses on a calm water surface. To understand the true nature of life, one must experience both joy and sorrow, although not all signs of the future were the same. King Suddhodana felt unease, for he saw in his son not only an heir to the throne but also a spiritual seeker. The memory of his beloved Queen Mayadevi, who left this world just 7 days after Siddhartha's birth, lingered in the monarch's heart like the shadow of passing. So, the king decided to entrust the care of the boy to his aunt, Mahapujapati Gautami. A long shadow fell upon Kapilavastu as the small family residence became a prison for Siddhartha, where the king created a world of sensual pleasures and abundance while simultaneously shielding him from the winds of change and the journey towards spiritual depth. The king thought that by confining his son within the palace and endowing him with a life of abundance, in which he would never experience the suffering that the king himself had endured, he wanted to protect him so deeply from harm. To understand the true nature of life, one must experience both joy and sorrow, although not all signs of the future were the same. This longing was like a flower growing in a field, yearning to touch the sky. And so, at the age of 16, enamored with Princess Yasodhara, young Siddhartha embarked on a new path in his destiny. Though feelings burned in his heart, they were not subdued by anger. He knew that the path of life led not only through fields of flowers but also through dark valleys of suffering. Time passed, and in Siddhartha's heart, questions were born, like the seeds of future change, propelling him towards the search for truth. The external world, with its old age, sickness, and death, tempted him like an enigmatic labyrinth. The day came when a wandering sage, dressed in simple robes, appeared on the horizon. This sage, whose laughing eyes concealed the secret of eternity, became the key to the closed doors of spiritual discovery. That was just the beginning of the journey. 10 years spent in meditation and seeking, until finally, under the Bodhi tree, Siddhartha touched the truth hidden deep within himself. There, at the intersection of heaven and earth, in silence and peace, he attained enlightenment, a state of complete understanding where suffering revealed its face, while also pointing the way to liberation. Family life is a crowded, dusty road. By departing you become free. Siddhartha spoke to his disciples, surrounding them with the story of his life. He embarked on a journey through the realms of the mind and body, proclaiming words that would change the course of human history. He lived and taught, not only as an Indian prince but also as a spiritual guide who opened the doors to enlightenment. Thus began the legend of Siddhartha, which grew stronger like a river's current, carrying on its waves new thoughts, ideas, and ways of life.
As a tree, even though it has been cut down, is firm so long as its root is safe, and grows again, thus, unless the feeders of thirst are destroyed, the pain of life will return again and again.
In a conversation filled with humility, Buddha Sakyamuni, the mystical teacher with a profound gaze, recalls the carefree years spent in his father's palace. His words flow like a melody, bringing with them the scent of luxury and opulence that surrounded the young prince. Around the year 563, I lived exceedingly, entirely luxuriously, Buddha says, and his voice echoes with the forgotten splendor of the royal palace. He speaks of his father, the king, who sought to provide him with everything that could be dreamed of. He describes lotus ponds in various shades that adorn the palace space: red, white, blue like roses in the garden of the universe. Sandalwood trees, reaching from distant Varanasi, provided scents that reminded of distant lands. His wardrobe was a symbol of abundance: a turban, a tunic, a cloak. Each element reflected luxury and elegance. The white umbrella became a shield against the harshness of the world, protecting him from the extremes of nature and everyday life. 3 palaces, 3 in number and 3 in purpose, served as a cottage of cards for the royal youth. All of this was done for his good and comfort. Even during the 4 rainy months, Siddhartha was surrounded exclusively by female companionship, meant to be a source of entertainment and pleasure. His life revolved within the white walls of the palace, which became his kingdom but also his prison. However, though luxury and riches created the appearance of happiness, young Siddhartha knew that life was more than just sensual pleasures. The prohibition on leaving the palace could not restrain his desire to discover the world beyond the walls, as I mentioned earlier. At the age of 16, he fell in love with Princess Yasodhara, uniting his life with hers. The fruit of their love was their son Rahila, who was born when Siddhartha was 29 years old. Even in the face of unimaginable luxuries, the desire to understand the deeper meaning of life grew within him, like a flame ready to ignite. One day, while traveling from the palace, a sight moved him profoundly. A frail old man, a sick person, and bodies carried by mourners on the wind. These were the 5 aspects of life: youth, old age, illness, death, and asceticism. All these images compose the symphony of human destiny. And in its harmony, Siddhartha found the key to understanding the essence of suffering. The sage in simple robes, a wandering beggar, enchanted him with his calm and contentment despite poverty. He was like a star in the night sky, shining just as brightly in the darkness. This encounter would be the spark that initiated a great change in Siddhartha's life. The desire to know the truth and be liberated from suffering began to drive him more and more. The nagging questions and the desire for enlightenment became stronger within him. His heart yearned for something more than the charm of palace life. Finally, one day, he made a momentous decision. Siddhartha left the palace, leaving behind luxuries and comfort, to embark on a search for the deep truth that would change not only his destiny but also that of all humanity. In solitary reflection, accompanied by the silence of the night's abyss, Buddha Sakyamuni fills his thoughts with words that vibrate in the air like the gentle rustling of leaves. His inner being is tranquil, and his thoughts are clear like water in an undisturbed pond. Family life is a crowded, dusty road, he whispers to himself, stepping beyond the boundaries of the royal palace. It was a challenge, crossing the threshold where an unknown future awaited. His steps led toward freedom, toward purification. His imagination played tricks on him, painting a picture of a holy life, as perfect as a flawlessly polished surface. What if he were to shave his hair and beard, don ochre robes, and distance himself from home, leaving behind luxury and comfort? In Buddha's soul, a vision arises, so realistic that it could be seen in the palm of his hand. This holy life shimmers before him like a jewel in the rays of the rising sun. This vision of liberation instills in him the courage to risk leaving the palace walls and renouncing his royal heritage. One night, when darkness had cast its soothing cloak over the world, Buddha ordered his horse to be saddled. On its back, he set out in the company of a faithful servant who accompanied him on this courageous journey into the unknown future. It was the moment of the great departure, a symbolic crossing of the boundaries of the known reality to embark on a search for a truth deeper than anything his royal brethren had ever seen. The appearance of the young prince in contrasting worlds must have been like a symphony of two opposing tones. In his hands he held the reins of a horse, and he wore humble beggar's robes. This surprising combination caught the attention of King Bimbisara, the ruler of a neighboring kingdom. He personally approached Siddhartha and with great curiosity asked the question that hung in the air like a spark ready to ignite. It was then that Siddhartha revealed his choice to the king, sharing with him the courage of his spirit. News of the exceptional wanderer quickly spread, much like a wave of sound spreading across a calm lake. Rumors also reached his father's palace, like messengers echoing news from afar. It was an additional blow to King Suddhodana that his son, who could inherit the throne, had chosen a beggar's life, one that was impoverished but filled with deep meaning. Such a gesture was like a story in a single act, one that captured people's hearts, while simultaneously unsettling the peace within the palace walls. Having spent 6 long years in search of truth, Siddhartha walked the paths where he encountered sages with the deepest knowledge of their time. In the presence of Alara Kalama and Uddaka Ramaputta, stars of the spiritual world of that era, he did not lag behind. Like a flame, his mind surpassed their teachings, but he still hungered for more, thirsty for the truth hidden behind the veils of thought. This seeker's soul could not be satisfied with shallow knowledge. He then joined the circle of 5 ascetics who, in their austere discipline, sought liberation. His dedication became the driving force of the group, and he himself became their leader. However, like the moon hidden behind clouds, unaware of its full brightness, Siddhartha noticed that he could not achieve deep concentration through extreme asceticism. He realized that this path led nowhere, only to dead silence, not to enlightenment. He set aside the empty ascetic practices and found hope for discovering the truth in the form of a generous village girl named Sujata. He surrounded his body and spirit with a simple meal, one of the most delicious he had had since leaving the palace. Energy flowed through him, providing bricks for the continuation of his unique mission. As he continued his journey, he encountered a man cutting grass who, without words, gave him a bundle. It was a gesture as profound as if all the knowledge of the universe were contained in those humble stalks. Finally, under the Bodhi tree, which would henceforth bear the marks of his enlightenment, Siddhartha found refuge for his thoughts. The decision was made to sit here until the riddle of suffering unraveled. Meditating for 49 days, he delved into the depths of his mind, passing through successive layers of meditative depth. During these long days and nights, like a flowing stream, the demon Mara appeared before him, the incarnation of ignorance, the obstacles placed on the path to enlightenment. Siddhartha Gautama gained omniscience during that time, glimpses into his past incarnations, touched the mystery of suffering, and ultimately discovered that the world is immersed in suffering. It was then that he also received the key to overcoming the suffering, the meaning hidden behind the 4 noble truths. His enlightenment was like a ray of sunlight piercing through the dense forest of uncertainty, illuminating the path for others who sought to understand the mysteries of life and suffering. Siddhartha Gautama became the Buddha, the enlightened one, not just for himself, but for all suffering souls on this extraordinary journey through samsara. Siddhartha achieved a state of complete enlightenment, the state of Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, the highest, full awakening, liberation from suffering, and a profound understanding of its causes. At this point, his existence was like perfect harmony, where the light of clarity intertwined with shadows, and his mind became pure, tranquil, unwavering, and fully flexible. From that moment on, he was called the Buddha, the one who had achieved enlightenment and awakening. When his mind reached deep, focused clarity as pure as the blue sky, a portal of knowledge about his past lives opened before him. The past unfolded before him like a kaleidoscope, revealing hundreds of thousands of existences, eons of cosmic pulsation and expansion. It was an act of remembering life's chapters, full of insights and mysteries, concealed within the great sphere of samsara. He directed his mind to the field of impermanence and the cycle of reincarnation. His gaze penetrated deep, revealing how beings come and go, how they experience various states depending on their karmic heritage. It was an insight into the rhythm of the universe, where beings became better or worse, beautiful or unattractive, happy or unhappy, living their lives in accordance with their past actions. The darkness of ignorance was overcome, and the mind was enlightened with knowledge. His inner light shifted the curtains, and previous ignorance gave way to clarity. This was the transformation of one who is ever mindful, diligent, and determined. However, though emerging pleasures were the result of this deep transformation, they did not disturb the peace of his mind or bind him. His insights led him further, focusing on the barriers of the mind. He observed how these obstacles arise, what their causes are, and how they can be overcome. It was a discovery of the key elements of human existence: suffering, its origins, the possibility of its cessation, and the path to liberation. Over the following weeks, the Buddha remained in deep meditation, traversing successive realms of insight and understanding. He experienced visions of celestial beings, opening doors to another dimension before him. He stood at a crossroads, whether to reveal his profound wisdom to the world. It was then that Brahma, the deity of divine realms, came to dispel his doubts. He spoke to him not in words but in understanding, showing that the further path leads to imparting wisdom and enlightenment to others. Siddhartha became the Buddha, something more than just awakened. He became hope and a guide for those seeking the path to liberation. With concern for future generations in his heart, the Buddha asked himself whom he should teach first. His choice fell on the 5 ascetics with whom he had previously shared austere practices. He knew that their minds were open to deep truths. He left the place of meditation under the tree and went to Deer Park, where these men resided. There, before his former companions, he delivered his first, now legendary, discourse on the 4 Noble Truths. It marked the beginning of the Wheel of Dharma, a spiritual movement that would soon change the face of the world. His insights did not end there. In his enlightened vision, he saw that in the kingdom of Magadha, where he was located, 3 brothers named Kassapa from Uruvala were dominant, followers of the holy fire. These sages enjoyed great authority, each having numerous disciples, 500, 300, and 200, respectively. Buddha decided to visit them and share his dharma with them. Upon arriving, he demonstrated his extraordinary power through miracles and profound wisdom, gaining their respect and disciples for himself. The Kassapa brothers and their students, captivated by Buddha, became his faithful followers, guiding them on the path to enlightenment. This dynamic process of transmitting knowledge and wisdom gathered crowds of people around Buddha. His teachings touched the hearts and minds, quickly forming a large community of disciples. Together with them, he went to the court of King Bimbisara, who was fascinated by such an assembly of monks and the Kassapa brothers. This sight amazed the residents and drew the attention of the king. The Kassapa brothers took this opportunity to explain to the crowds why they followed Buddha. What they heard from the brothers and the maturity and focus of the new disciples convinced King Bimbisara, who also joined the ranks of Buddha's supporters. This was another milestone in the development of Buddhism, as the king's support was significant for the spread of Buddha's teachings within the kingdom of Magadha and beyond its borders. 5 months after attaining full enlightenment, Buddha decided to return to his hometown of Kapilavastu. Accompanied by 1,000 monks, he he traveled several kilometers each day, and his fame preceded him, reaching the ears of the people from afar. A warm welcome was prepared in a nearby park, where crowds of eager attendees awaited. However, his wife, Yasodhara, did not come out to meet him. She argued that if he still felt something for her, he would come to the palace himself. Buddha went to meet her with his closest monks, respecting her choice. During that time, he spent a week with his family, sharing the teachings of the Dharma. Soon Yasodhara, their son Rahula, and his aunt Mahaprajapati joined the Sangha, the community of monks and nuns that Buddha had founded. From then on, Buddha's fame continued to grow, and the number of monks and lay supporters increased not only in Kapilavastu but also in neighboring kingdoms. Buddha traveled through northern India, moving from place to place, teaching and sharing the principles of his religion for the next 45 years. He was a master of adaptation, tailoring his message to the abilities and interests of his listeners, which contributed to the wide-ranging impact of his teachings on various layers of society. According to the doctrine of the Mahayana schools of Buddhism, Buddha Sakyamuni turned the wheel of Dharma 3 times, imparting 3 levels of different teachings. These 3 cycles contain the essence of Buddhist teachings, which are transmitted in various Buddhist schools that exist today. The first cycle of teachings began when Buddha expounded the 4 Noble Truths in Sarnath, 7 weeks after attaining enlightenment. In this cycle, he taught the truths about suffering, the cause of suffering, the cessation of suffering, and the path leading to the cessation of suffering. This was a fundamental stage in the transmission of Buddhist teachings. The second cycle of teachings began 16 years after attaining enlightenment, when Buddha started teaching about the lack of characteristics, or the emptiness of all phenomena. This did not imply a denial of the existence of phenomena but rather an explanation of their true nature, which is interdependent and devoid of fixed, independent attributes. The third cycle of teachings commenced 27 years after attaining enlightenment in a place called Shravasti. In these teachings, the focus was on the nature of the Buddha, which pervades all beings as the clear light of the nature of mind. These teachings offered insights into the qualities already present in the nature of the Buddha, which develop and flourish upon achieving the state of Buddhahood. These 3 cycles of Buddha's teachings illustrate the evolution and deeper aspects of his message. Through these successive cycles, Buddha expanded and elaborated on his teachings, tailoring them to the capacities and needs of various disciples, thereby supporting their journey towards enlightenment. Buddha attracted followers from diverse social backgrounds, including not only monks but also lay people, Brahmins, and kings. His influence extended even to courtesans and murderers, and the numerous miracles he performed enhanced the popularity of his teachings. However, not everyone welcomed his teachings with open arms, and some felt jealousy due to his growing popularity. One such person was his cousin Devadatta. Devadatta, initially a disciple of Buddha, later pursued a path to gain more popularity than Buddha. He became deluded and declared himself a greater sage, attempting to attract followers to himself. Initially, he tempted novices with stricter rules and criticized Buddha's moderation. Although he managed to gather some followers, he remained in the shadow of the master. His frustration grew as he failed to harm Buddha's reputation. As a result, he plotted against Buddha, attempting various methods, such as sending archers, an enraged elephant, or trying to drop a boulder on Buddha's path. However, all these attempts were in vain, and Devadatta's frustration escalated. The climax came when Devadatta convinced some of Buddha's most loyal disciples that he was a better teacher. These individuals, however, had the mission of bringing the misguided monks back to Buddha's assembly. When Devadatta realized that his influence was waning, he was consumed by rage, which led to his declining health and ultimately his death. The story of Devadatta serves as an example that not everyone accepted Buddha and his teachings, and some even tried to oppose him due to jealousy and vanity. At the age of 80, Buddha announced that the time had come to conclude his mission and life. This announcement filled his most faithful disciple, Ananda, with sadness, who begged him not to leave. He reminded Buddha that he had previously stated multiple times that he could live until the end of time, but now, he had chosen to leave the world. Ananda recalled that on those occasions, no one had requested him not to leave. However, Buddha responded that those opportunities had passed, and now it could not be changed. He decided to go to the city of Kusinara, where he would attain Parinirvana, a state beyond life and death. Before this significant moment, he delivered his teachings, providing guidance on further practice and behavior after his departure. His final words were, "Strive diligently. Achieve your own liberation, through diligence. The teachings and principles I have given you will be your guide, whether I am present or not." Subsequently, in the city of Kusinara, Buddha achieved Parinirvana, liberation from the cycle of birth and death, entering a state beyond the phenomena of this world. This event, known as his death and passing away, is one of the most significant moments in the history of Buddhism. Continue to practice diligently, for all conditioned phenomena are impermanent. Buddha Sakyamuni, Mahaparinibbana Sutta. These words of Buddha Sakyamuni reveal the profound wisdom and fundamental teaching of Buddhism regarding the impermanent nature of all things. They suggest that all phenomena in the world, including our experiences and material objects, are transient and impermanent. This serves as an encouragement to continue spiritual practice to gain understanding and liberation from suffering by attaining the state of liberation, Nibbana, beyond the cycle of birth and death. To conclude, I invite you to listen to a Buddhist parable about awareness. Awareness. There was once a great Buddhist master, Nagarjuna. A thief came to him. He became interested in the master because he had never seen a person so spiritually beautiful and full of good energy. He asked Nagarjuna, "Do I also have an opportunity to develop? But I need to clear one thing first. I'm a thief. What's more, I won't quit, so don't make me that condition. I'll do whatever you tell me, but I won't stop being a thief. I tried many times, I never succeeded, so I gave up. I've accepted my destiny to be and remain a thief, so let's not talk about it. Let it be clear from the beginning." Nagarjuna replied, "Why are you afraid? Who will say that you are a thief?" The thief replied, "Well, when I went to see a monk, a priest, a saint, they would first tell me stop stealing first. Nagarjuna laughed and said, "You must have gone to the thieves themselves, otherwise why say it? What do they care? I don't care." The thief was very happy. He said, "All right then. It seems to me that now I can become your disciple. You are the right master." Nagarjuna agreed and said, "Now go and do whatever you want. You only have to meet one condition. Be aware. Go, break in, enter houses, take things, steal. Do what you want. I don't care. I'm not a thief, but do everything knowingly." The thief did not realize that he had fallen into a trap. He said, "Fine then. We'll try." After 3 weeks, he came back and said, "You're sneaky because if I become conscious, I won't be able to steal. If I steal, consciousness will disappear. Now I have a dilemma." Nagarjuna replied, "Enough talk about being a thief and stealing. I'm not interested. I am not a thief. You must decide. If you want awareness, then you have to make a decision. If you don't want it, then you have to decide that too." The man replied, "But now it will be difficult for me. I have a taste for consciousness, and it is such a beautiful thing I will reject everything you say." Recently, for the first time in my life, I managed to enter the king's palace. I opened the vault. I could have become the richest man in the world, but you followed me and I had to be aware. When I became aware, all of a sudden, the motivation and desire disappeared. When I became aware, diamonds looked like stones to me, ordinary stones. When I lost consciousness, the treasure reappeared. I waited there and changed my condition many times. Once I became aware, I was like a Buddha. I couldn't even touch the treasure because it seemed silly to me. Pointless, they're just stones. What am I doing? Losing myself to some stones? But then I lost consciousness. The stones seemed beautiful to me again. An illusion seized me. In the end, I decided they weren't worth it.